I'm
That's
going to be
fair.
totally honest, and I feel like this bit is obviously going to get cut from the recording, but I literally finished the book 20 minutes ago. And if that isn't the most
Absolutely, that is not getting cut.
if that is the most ADHD thing you've ever heard, then absolutely I agree. And I'm really conscious that I'm holding this up my bookmarks in the middle of it. I finished it on my phone. Okay, I finished it.
Fair. Hello, Tandem fandom. My name is Alexis, and welcome to the Tandem Collective, where you can find all of the latest bookish recommendations, reviews, and news from Team Tandem. So today we are at actually the conclusion of a process that me and the other genre correspondents have been going through, an experience rather, and that is a genre book swap. So each of us has our reading preferences and our preferred genres, and we thought it would be fun and an interesting experiment to switch up the genres that we were reading. So we each recommended a book from our preferred or one of our preferred genres to another one of the YouTube correspondents. We have all read our recommended books, and today we're going to chat about it. So let's start off with introducing ourselves and what we usually read and the book that was recommended for us to read. And Lex, do you want to start?
Hi, I am Lex, and I usually read crime and thriller books. So I was thrilled to be able to suggest The Butterfly Garden by Dot Hutchinson to Jenny. And I was surprised to see that Char had recommended me Neon Gods by Katie Roberts.
Were you surprised, though, that it was Neon Gods by Katie Roberts?
There was a wonder, like, I was like, she's either going to do me really dirty and just give me something that she knows is so completely far away from me. But actually, it was a pleasant surprise when Neon Gods came in. I was like, yeah, okay, cool. I feel like I can do this.
Right. So, Char, then what do you usually read and what was recommended to you?
Hi, I am Char. I usually read romance. I'm very much in my romance era, but I was not too far out of my wheelhouse, but a lot more fantasy than romancy than I usually read. But I was recommended From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout from Alexis. And as you just heard, I recommended Neon Gods to Lex.
Awesome. And I didn't realize how long that book actually was.
Yeah, she's hefty.
She is hefty because I read it on my phone, so like I had no concept of like how
She's
chunky.
like I just that classic self-published, like it's really dense, like it's very heavy.
Yeah.
Heavy paperback. But yeah, it's
So oopsie. Loved it. Jenny, let's come around to you.
Hi, I'm Jenny. So I read everything, which is great because there's never anything that's too massively like out of my comfort zone. It also
That's the next challenge. The next challenge is something that even Jenny's like, I'm
make
not
Jenny so wildly uncomfortable.
I read a horror this month. That's actually I read two. That was quite out of my comfort zone. But yeah, the challenge really was what to recommend because I kind of read a bit of everything. So trying to find a book to recommend that isn't a romance, fantasy, or a thriller that I really love was quite a challenge. But I recommended Alexis Lion by Saru Briley, which is a memoir. And I was recommended from Lex a thriller that I had never heard of and was dark, which is The Butterfly Garden by Dot Hutchinson. I can see why Lex recommended me this one.
Curious to hear more about why you think she recommended that one. But I'll just round things off. So I'm Alexis, and I mostly read fantasy and romance, although I dabble in a bit of anything, especially with audiobooks. So I recommended From Blood and Ash to Char, and I was recommended Lion by Saru Brearley from Jenny, which, as she said, is a memoir. So I think maybe it would be most interesting to hear from the recommenders first about why we recommended the books we did to the people we did. And I'm happy to go first on this one. So I recommended From Blood and Ash to Char because I know that she's a romance reader. I know she likes spicy romance. And I know that she had read House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas, and I believe enjoyed that. So I felt like From Blood and Ash, it's it's not. I mean, it's not as mainstream as Sarah J. Maas. I think it's popular within the fantasy reading community. So it was just, I felt delving a little bit deeper into the fantasy, but it still got spice. It still got lots of supernatural creatures. So I thought it would be a good fit, aside from the fact that it's like 600 pages. So yeah, that's me. Char, do you want to talk about why you recommended your book?
Yes. So I think actually, so I know we all have our own genres, and that is obviously what our traditional wheelhouse. But I don't think anyone is as entrenched in their genre as Lex is. Like, I think the three of us, like Alexis, Jenny, and I, definitely sort of read more widely. Like, you can see, like that, we do. Like, I still read like thrillers and memoirs and poetry and like nonfiction, like pertaining to like women's issues. And so I think that there's no one on the team, in fact, I don't think I've ever met anyone that is more entrenched in a genre than Lex Brookman.
Are we
And
just piling on the shame at this point?
no, it's not a shame.
Oh,
It's not a shame. It's actually admirable that like your favorite movie is Jaws, and it's very much like a personality trait at this point, and it's hard to pull out of that. And so I think what I tried to do was, because I ultimately didn't want to, I think none of us wanted to recommend a book that we didn't think the other would enjoy either. Like, this wasn't like a punishment task. More of a, here's what you could enjoy if you just sort of pulled out of your own lane a little. Neon Gods is one of my favorite books. It's one of the books that I've read in the past couple of years that I probably do recommend to a lot of other people. And it is getting quite hard because it is, again, becoming more and more mainstream. So a lot of other people have actually read it. But I think that the dynamic between Persephone and Hades is a very intriguing one, and I thought that that would capture Lex's interest. And I think there's also enough, and some people might find me in the comments, but I think there's enough plot outside of the romance to provide a non-romance reader with something to get their teeth into.
Lex, why did you recommend the book you did to Jenny?
So I recommended The Butterfly Garden by Dot Hutchinson. And actually, this was a book that came recommended to me from one of our own crime community. So Emma Reads Crime recommended this book to me because I said to her, look, I'm looking for dark. What's the darkest book that you've read in recent times? And she said, oh, you might like this. It might be too dark. And I was like, Emma, listen, not a problem. So I ordered it pretty much straight away. And again, a bit like Char, your book, like it I don't think it is self-published, but it gives that self-published vibe. Like the physical edition, it's a bit floppy, like the pages feel really tactile. Jenny, yeah, look, Jenny's flopping it about. There we go.
Yeah, the flop as well.
That's the sound bite, isn't it? Jenny's flopping it about. So, I read it in a heartbeat. And to Char's point, yes, I read a lot of crime and thriller books. So much to the extent that I know that I have read a book, but can I tell you what it's about and what happened? No, because I have read so many of these books. Yet Butterfly Garden is one of those books that I will have imprinted in my brain until I die. And I'm not mad about it. Like, it was a brilliant, brilliant book. I've since read the second one in the series, but I just don't think that anything can overtake the brilliance of The Butterfly Garden. It's dark, but it does have what I would call like really great serial killer lore, like the detail of his particular crime and the way that he enjoys laying things out and the way that he like, I feel like a little bit of a behavioral analysis agent here. But the way that he really executes his crimes is the most interesting thing about it. So a nice break from something super popcorny that I knew that I was going to remember. And I wanted Jenny to experience it the same as well.
Very interested to hear what Jenny has to say about that. But first, Jenny, why did you recommend me Lion?
So, like I was saying, I read everything. So I was trying to think, what have I read recently and loved that is not a fantasy thriller or romance? And I actually gave Alexis two options. It's like, would you like a middle grade or would you like a memoir? And Alexis chose the memoir. So I was like, right, okay, it's Lion. It's just a book that made me cry so much when I read it. It's fantastic on audio. And again, I know Alexis likes audiobooks. And it's just a book that I read it and I was like, this can't be true, but it is. And that's just what absolutely hit me. Like, I still think about this book, and I read it over a year ago. It stuck with me. And but again, like I said, it was one of I probably had maybe like 3 or 4 options that aren't within the 3 big genres here. And I'm really, really glad that you chose memoir and I could make you read Lion.
Well, me too. Me too. And to be fair, I do like middle grade, but I read a lot of it for my other job. So I thought, yeah, memoir, and I'm really glad that's what I picked. Awesome. I guess moving forward in the process of, or I keep saying process, but I think experience is a better word. What was your initial reactions when you all got your book recommendations? How different was it from what you normally read? And like, were you nervous? Were you excited? And let's go straight back to Jenny. What did you think about when you got the butterfly effect?
When Lex said she was going to be picking a book for me, the first thing that I got was a text from Lex saying, "Do you have any triggers?" And I thought, okay, we're going to be in for a ride here. And then when she said the butterfly garden, and I looked it up and I was like, okay, I can see this is sounding dark, but why did she immediately ask, like, so importantly, of like, I need to know if you have any sort of triggers, because I can't recommend this book if you do. And I will just want to say now, if you are wanting to pick up Butterfly Garden, check out the trigger list. There are many and they are serious. So like, please do not pick this up without looking at the trigger list if you are in any way needing any kind of content warnings. But yeah, first impression was, I am now intrigued, because this sounds just my kind of level of dark and creepy and kind of like twisty. What have I read? How did this come out of someone's head? And are they okay? Those are my initial thoughts.
My initial thoughts when I got your recommendation was, number one, I was really glad it was on audiobook, because I really enjoy listening to memoirs on audio. It's also been a while since I had listened to a memoir by a man, if ever, because I gravitate towards memoirs by self-identified women. And sort of the international aspect of it, I was excited to learn more about. And sort, there are different cultures represented and sort of intertwined in different ways. And so I was really intrigued by that. So that's me on Lion. Char, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, my first impressions were, wow, this is big. And actually, whenever I see a big book like this, I'm like, I don't know if anyone is on that side of TikTok, but it's like that, it's like a sound, and it's this person in a bookstore, she's like, is it ever that serious? And I think that was my first thought. Like, I picked this up and I was like, is it this serious? And I know that people are going to come for me and be like, it's only 600 pages. I know. But in my big age, I have sort of got to a place where I'm like, can it be said in 300 pages or less? Probably. So yeah, initial thoughts were, wow, this is a lot. But I was excited, was generally, I think it has a lot of the touch points that I enjoy in a fantasy. I was excited that there was going to be a sprinkle of romance. So yeah, first impressions were, wow, this is huge. And seconds were, this sounds great.
Fair enough. All right, Lex, Neon Gods.
You know what? Knowing Char and knowing her reading habits and her reading styles, I knew that I was going to get something from one of two camps in the romance world. I was either going to get a kind of Talia Hibbert, softer pastel colored cover with maybe boy meets girl, everything is terrible, then it's wonderful, maybe a third act breakup or something. Or I was going to get some fairly like smutty smut, which I was absolutely not dissuaded by. I've read quite a lot of erotica, I would say, and I would say that Neon Gods falls into erotica, I think. But I was very intrigued by the cover. Like, it's dark, it's grungy, it's a little bit me. Obviously, you cannot escape any kind of Greek retellings at the moment. It feels like they're creeping across every genre. They're on every platform. It feels like they're having their like renaissance, and it just doesn't ever seem to be ending. So I was excited to see my first ever kind of steps into that, being Hades and Persephone. And yeah, I think I was definitely up for the challenge. It also did help that it was nice and short and snappy. So thanks, Char, for that. If you'd have sent me a 600-page book, I would have been tired.
Jenny, have you read Neon Gods?
No.
No, okay.
I thought I owned Neon Gods, and I thought I was going to read it, and then when I actually checked shelves, I don't. I own Learn My Lesson, which is not Neon Gods and not in the same series, just happens to be by the same author, and I got myself very confused.
Okay, because
Interestingly, the Hades in that one is the Hades and Neon Gods one's dad. So there's
Jenny, maybe I need to read that. I would read that.
They're like connected.
Why do they have the same name?
It's because
it's a job title.
Yeah, it's like a name it's a title. So like Zeus is a title.
Like M in Bond, right? M.
Yeah. So like you inherit the name.
Oh. I would read Neon Gods. I'll be totally honest here. I would read Neon Gods, except it's like £5 on Kindle, and I don't like to buy a Kindle book that's over like 99p.
So I'm debating now. Should we talk about our like reading experience, or should we go right into like how many stars we're giving these books?
I think stars. Like
stars.
Review and thoughts.
Because
to be totally honest, reading experience, I read it on the plane. That's all I've got to say.
Okay.
I'm going to be totally honest, and I feel like this bit is obviously going to get cut from the recording, but I literally finished the book 20 minutes ago. And if that isn't the most
ADHD, that is not getting cut.
If that is the most ADHD thing you've ever heard, then absolutely I agree. And I'm really conscious that I'm holding this up. My bookmark's in the middle of it. I finished it on my phone. Okay, I finished it.
Fair. So then you're fresh off of finishing the book. Then, Char, I would love to know what you rated it, what you thought of it.
It's hard. So I don't really use star ratings because I find it very difficult to star rate things in that. I don't know how this sounds when I say it, but I feel like, do you not feel that you've gotten to know yourself enough now that you really only pick good books for yourself to read? And so I feel like it seems disingenuous that I'm like, this was 4 stars, this was 5 stars, because I really just rate on vibes. I rate on, I get to the end of it, did I enjoy it? Yeah, it was 5 stars. I would absolutely recommend that to you. So it's quite hard for me to give a star rating. I think if I'm thinking about everything overall, for me personally, I think the first half of the book was very slow. It was slow. But I have been told by Elle, who obviously she reads a bit more fantasy than I do, and obviously has a husband who reads a lot of high fantasy, like Brandon Sanderson high fantasy, that this is classic fantasy, in that there is a point in the book where things just start to avalanche, and that certainly happens here. And if you want to know when, it happens from about page 293. Really when things just start to...
I like that you say, oh, it happens about.
Yeah,
and then
approximately.
293.
That's
Incredibly specific page number.
things really start to kick off. And then it is just twist after twist after twist. Like, I've been sat on the sofa this morning with the girls just like gasping, like, what is happening? I'm gonna give it a solid 4, but as with most books this length, I sometimes just think, could it have been about 100 pages shorter?
Yeah,
Maybe.
I don't disagree with you.
I didn't dislike it. I liked the world building. I liked the sort of the classic fantasy elements of like you said, like the sort of magical creatures, and the lore was really interesting. I found the lore of like the ascension stuff, like the magic was very interesting. But yes, overall well written, but for me could have been about 100 pages shorter.
Fair enough. Would you read the sequel?
Yes, probably not right away.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair.
Not gonna pick it up this afternoon.
No, yeah, absolutely fair. Well, I'm so glad to hear that you enjoyed it despite its enormous page count. Awesome. I feel like check mission accomplished. So let's move on to the book Char recommended to Lex.
So I actually just pulled up my story graph because I am not very good at remembering things. And I am an absolute complete polar opposite to Char. So as soon as I had got this book recommendation, I knew that I had to order it and read it. Otherwise, I would put it off and it would just never get done. So my story graph actually says that I finished the book on the March 12th. It's now the 3rd of July. So
Wow.
forgive me if my details aren't totally correct.
I'm sorry, this is fully my fault that this is happening so late. Sorry, guys.
No, absolutely. I feel like with these challenges, especially with a fucking 600-page book, we need some fucking time. But according to my story graph, and again, I very much side with Char when it comes to star ratings, because I realize that my stars are entirely subjective to me and are entirely subjective to the other books that I have read. So if I finish 2 books in a week and one of them is a 4-star, I measure the other one against that 4-star, even if they are completely different genre, completely different vibe, completely different anything. So I did rate it a 4-star, but that is almost null and void information purely because it's a Lex 4-star, regardless of like a societal 4-star, if that makes any sense whatsoever. I really enjoyed it. Would I read the series? I don't know, because I loved specifically Hades and Persephone so much. No, I'm going to rephrase, because
I have literally read, I mean, I have very much enjoyed the series. I'm a big fan of the series, but I have literally lived for the little snippets of their relationship that you get in the other books.
Okay.
Like just like little like bits about their marriage, and then like Persephone's pregnant, but like you hear about it secondhand from someone. It was like, oh my God.
Okay, all right. So you think it's worth reading the other books to get those little like glimpses through the window?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the thing with the Ing is that the overall plot really starts to come together. It really starts to be like not so much just sex and really get into the overarching political plot. But yeah, I very much live for those moments of Hades and Persephone in the other books. There's not a lot of it, but it happens.
I feel like in romance series as well, it's quite common to have like a different couple in the friend group for each book, and you sort of, it's like the same world and the same community. And like I find that you do get really attached, especially like often to the first one in the series. But that if you keep reading them, you might find like a couple or a throuple that you love even more. I found that with Samantha Young's romance books. Like I loved the first one and I was like, nothing in this series could be better than this. And then I read the second one and the third one and I was like, oh, maybe it can. So I would, gently encourage you to give some of the other ones a try.
Okay. All right, guys, sold. But yeah, no, I did really enjoy Neon Gods. I think a lot of contributing factors were the fact that, actually, to Char's point, it felt it was a very political novel. It is about two kind of differing worlds, different communities, different locations. We talk about poverty and food scarcity and all of these other elements that I didn't expect to come up in a smutty little romance novel. I loved the fact that it was fantasy. These people are Greek gods, but there wasn't an exorbitant amount of world building and lore building. I didn't have to look. I like a map in a book, like you'll find the body here, but I don't want to have to study a map to understand the lay of the location, to understand the world that I'm in. I don't want that. This is set in a kind of like New York versus Brooklyn, like Upper East Side versus downtown. And I loved that vibe. I love that these felt like real people. Like, there are so many elements of this book that mirror the society that we live in. I'm like, well, yeah, cool, that makes sense. I love the individual personalities of the gods. As I mentioned before, I feel like Greek gods are kind of peppered across all media, but if you are our age, and by our age, I mean like roughly 30, and you're telling me that your first Greek god lesson didn't come from Hercules, the Disney version, you are incorrect. You are lying. So every character that I met, I was flashing up the Disney flashcards in my head of going, right, okay, yep, you're the pink one with wings, or you're the orange one over here, or whatever. So yeah, I absolutely love the setting of New York versus Brooklyn. I absolutely love the little personalities of gods, and flicking through my Rolodex of not very vast information of what I knew about those characters. Two of my favorite characters, I actually can't remember the names of, so you're gonna have to help me out here. So there's one person who doesn't live in Hades' house, but spends a lot of time in Hades' house, and she is the one who can pass messages on in the same voice as the other person.
Hermes.
Okay. They are great fun. Like almost this little mischief maker. I loved that. And I love specifically, I love the relationship between Hades and Hermes. Like, we're not friends, you're kind of like little sibling vibe. That was a lot of fun to play with. Trying to think what else I wanted to mention here. Oh, something that I had said to Susanna is I really love the attention to detail throughout the book. There's not huge world building, but there are these little pepperings of things where a character will say, oh my gods, plural. And I'm like, oh, that's clever, that's a thing. And Susanna was like, girl, you need to read more fantasy books. That's literally in every book. That's a basic level bite. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I enjoyed that. Hades and Persephone, love that. Love the retelling of those characters. Persephone, I could give or take. Hades, I would potentially consider myself a Hades girly now. Would be open to reading more Hades elements, which is why I'm interested in Daddy Hades. Would read that. So I guess to sum up, Char, thank you. I loved Neon Gods. Would read the rest of the series with your gentle guidance, but also think that they would be like nice palate cleansers. Get me out of a reading slump, jump into one of those.
And you can't really ask for better than that. That's
smashed it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so excited that you liked it so much, and that you said you don't, love tons of world building, but those things like the oh my gods, that's part of the world building. And
yeah, when I say world building, I mean like, oh, in this level of the world, then dogs can fly, and actually we only speak backwards, and this character only walks backwards because of
fantasy really makes you work for it, and that's fine if you enjoy that. But this doesn't really make. I think it helps that it's set. It's modern. It's not set in like ancient Greece.
Yeah, the familiar Greek elements. And here's one of my many Hercules.
Yeah. Hercules
Paraphernalia.
still remains to be one of my favorite Disney movies, and the fact that it's coming to stage next year is honestly mind-blowingly good.
I'm so
It's
excited for
always so
that.
good.
Oh, like Meg is
So
one of
really, we're saying that we took ages to film this video. We didn't. We chose now until the Hercules announcement had happened
Yes.
to be very culturally relevant.
Yeah.
Moving on, so we've had Lex, and now let's talk about Lex's recommendation for Jenny.
I loved it. I have I've got a very mathy system for rating my books. Who is surprised here? But I gave it 5 stars. I loved, like, absolutely obsessed, loved it. And it was one of those where as I was reading it, I was like, no, what is happening? And like I read this on the plane to Italy, and I was sort of there. I don't know if you can actually see, but I've got tabs in there, and I was tabbing and highlighting, and while on the plane, irritating the person next to me, because obviously there's not enough room to have all of my like highlighters and tabs out in front of me on a Ryanair flight. But yeah, absolutely loved it. And it was one of those that I just, at key points, I was like, I need to talk about this. Like, oh my God, like, no, that's not happening, is it? And I don't want to give away any spoilers, but this book is just, some of the twists and some of the reveals, I still am like, I could, if I read this again today, I think I would still be shocked at some of the reveals in it, because of the fact that they are so twisty and so different, and so things that I haven't read before in any of the thrillers or the like very dark fantasy, which sometimes can be incredibly gruesome. But yeah, there was a lot that I was like, this feels like such a unique story. And I think for me, and again, I think we probably all have this, but where I read across so many different genres, I'm always looking for something that is unique. And there's so often where I read a book and I'm like, this is good, but I have read this before. I've seen this story before. And I felt like there was nothing in The Butterfly Garden that I was like, I've seen this before. This just felt completely unique. And yeah, I do worry a little bit about Dot Hutchinson's brain, because girl, there's a lot going on there. I'm not sure if I would continue the series, purely because, similarly to what Lex was saying, I feel like this was such a fantastic book that I think the next one follows the same detectives with a different case. And I don't feel, I wasn't connected to the detectives. I was connected to the victims and the murderer. Not, I wasn't connected to him, but it was like his serial killer style, and like to say, like the lore of him and his victims. That was what I loved about this book, rather than the detective.
Jenny, I have one quick question. How did you feel when the sons entered the narrative?
The first one, the first one kind of surprised but not surprised, because it felt very much like a kind of apprenticeship.
Yeah.
Like you see that sometimes with serial killers where they bring someone else in to learn their methods. The second time, that I was like, what's going to happen here? And part of me wanted him to go darker, part of me wanted him to like be kinder. And it kind of like, I love how the story kind of like told like how he was characterized. And even though I wanted him to kind of sway either side throughout, I was really happy with him staying in the middle, because I was constantly left on my toes of, are you going to go that way, or what's going to happen? Yeah, great recommendation.
Good. Okay, so we've got 2 4 and a 5-star so far, and I feel like that's excellent. Finally, the book that Jenny recommended to me, Lion. I think I would give this, I'm going to go with a 4.5 star, because there did come a point where I was like, so into the story. I was just like, did not want to put it down. And I feel like for memoir, that can be hard to find, at least for me. I do wish that I had tried reading the physical book. I really enjoyed the audiobook experience, but I want to know, like, if I would have enjoyed it as much on the page. If I don't think I've ever read a memoir actually cover to cover. I've only ever listened to them. So I wish I had like given myself the chance to do that. But it was such a beautiful story. It was heartbreaking as well, but it also gave you like warm and fuzzy feels in lots of places. I really liked the parts where he was searching through Google Maps, because I don't know about other people, but that was very relatable to me, like looking through Google Maps and like trying to find a specific spot and that kind of stuff. I'm gonna do that a lot when I'm planning a holiday and planning a trip. So, but obviously his was on a much deeper level, his search and just the intensity of it. And so I felt like I was like right there and like following his search through along the train lines in India on Google Maps. Yeah, sure.
Sorry, I'm going to try it this way because I think my internet is very bad. I think that scene is a scene that I read this book years and years and years ago, maybe like 2017, maybe earlier than that. And as I said, I read so much it just falls out of my head when it's gone. But that scene has still stuck with me. And it is written so well, and you can just feel how intensely he's like, I can remember this one thing, like it's like begins with a B or something. Is it a B? Or like he remembers the first letter of the station that it begins with. And honestly, yes, and as someone who has used the train system in India, this train system, it's very intense. There are so many train lines, and I it's really stuck with me, and I think that the fact that you brought that up is so, because when I think you talk to other people who've read the book, it's that they talk about, because it's just so wild that that's how he found his home, that he literally just sat for months and months and traced these lines.
On the tagline on the book is, as a 5-year-old in India, I got lost on a train. 25 years later, I crossed the world to find my way back home. Now, you could tell me that's a fantasy book and I wouldn't disbelieve you. You know, I'd be like, of course, that's not a real thing that could happen, but like it did, which is why I love this book. It's so incredible.
Yeah, I've never I hadn't thought about it that way, but that makes sense also as to why I enjoyed it so much and found it so gripping, as a fantasy reader, because it was this wild adventure, with different twists and really just incredible, results on both sides of it, because it sort of parallels, him getting lost and then eventually being adopted and moving to Australia, that is paralleled with his search for his hometown and his family back in India. Yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna bump it up to 5 stars, I think, because the only reason I was hesitating, I was like, would I read this again? Because most of my 5-star reads, that's like, okay, I will read that again. The experience was so great. And I think I would. And I think maybe I will try reading it again on the page, rather than in my ears. So yeah, thank you, Jenny, for introducing me to Lion. Also, the audiobook did have an interview with Saru at the end. Also, I loved like learning about where the title of the book came from. So I was like, lion, okay. I thought it was like a metaphorical thing, and when you do learn about the significance of that word, it's so cool. So yeah, I liked that a lot. This feels like an astounding success all around. I think.
Who knew a bunch of readers would be able to make some great recommendations to people who are actually their friends?
True, true. I guess, well, I have a quick fire question. And that is, what's the book that, if you remember, Lex, what's the book that you read immediately after this, slash will read immediately after finishing these books? I'm just like curious, like, my prediction is that we will all like spring back to our comfort genres, but I'm curious about that. Does anybody remember? Everybody's looking at their reading logs.
Think I read because I read this one when we were in Italy, so I think I read Funny Story afterwards.
Ooh.
As far apart, polar opposites as you can get. Very, very dark, serial killer, very twisty. Honestly, something wrong with everything about it, but amazing. To Funny Story, also a 5-star, light and fluffy romance.
Yeah, I wonder if we could ever get Lex to read Emily Henry. And if she would enjoy it.
I would give one a go. I would give one of them a go. I've had lots of recommendations of people saying how amazing they are, and they're selling, you know, multiple million, billion, trillion copies. So I would give one a go. The question is, what did you read straight after? So I was in a bit of a reading work, like tornado. So I actually read a Claire McGowan book before the book, and I read a Claire McGowan book after the book. But if the question more deeply means, would I read another one of these? Would I read a Greek like retelling? Yes, 100%. I'm definitely interested in Hades. I'm also really interested in Cassandra and those kind of stories. So yes, definitely would.
And B. Fitzgerald, so she wrote Girl Goddess Queen, which is Hades Persephone, and her next book that's coming out, I think this month or next month, is Cassandra.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
It's Cassandra and Helena Troy.
Yeah, I also love Cassandra. Like,
are they modern retellings or are they original kind of ancient Greek like versions? I give it a go.
But they're like, okay, no, I'm not going to go into like my just rant about how much I love Girl Goddess Queen because we'll be here all day. I'm gonna.
So after Lion, I read Sky in the Deep, which is a YA fantasy standalone that I was reading as part of a book swap. So Juliana on Team Tandem recommended that book for me. And then I went straight into Bride by Ali Hazelwood, which is nearly as romantic-y as you can get. So I feel like I just springboarded right back in to my fantasy romance comfort zone. However, I have read a memoir, or listened to a memoir actually since then, which is Sociopath by Patrick Gagne. I'm not sure. Yeah, Lex.
You want to read this?
Yeah, me too. It's on my list.
Yeah, she actually narrates the audiobook.
I love that.
Yeah, so I thought it was fantastic. I was so ripped throughout, and it, you know, I learned a lot about sociopathy. So yeah, her story is just really interesting. So I mean, 4 books later, I was back into memoir. Char, what are you dying to read now that you finished From Blood and Ash?
Right. I am in that really horrible situation as a reader where I'm like partway through maybe 6 or 7 books. I'm so far out of for the past couple of years, I've consistently been reading around 100 books a year. So the past couple of years, I've bumped up to 115. And last year I hit it. This year, I think I've read like 10 books. It's July the 3rd. So I'm feeling the pressure, and I know it's supposed to be fun, but there's also that competitive element. So I'm like partway through Twilight, because I'm annotating the Twilight books for Elle's birthday. So I'm part of the way through Twilight, which I think will be the next one.
Know that, or does that need to be like?
No, no, I have told her because I can't hold my own water. I just can't keep a secret that is like remedial. I'm just like, do you know when you just like you really like a gift that you've got someone and you're like, oh, I just have to know, I'm telling you. So I've already told her, so she knows. So yeah, I'm part of the way through that. I'm also re-listening to A Touch of Darkness, which is Hades Persephone. So I'm listening to that on audio. So they're probably the next two that I will finish. And I will say, actually, really interestingly, that now that I got to where I got to in From Blood and Ash, that this is so, so similar, Alexis, to the romantasy, the KU romantasy that I recommended to you in Rosetto, the Kingdom of Shadows and Stars, Stars and Shadows. It is so like very similar vibes to From Blood and Ash. So if you've read this and you're looking for something else, it is by Holly Renee, I think her name is. And very good.
How
Very
on earth do you remember the titles of all these books when the format for all of them is literally The
something.
Curse of Blood and Bones, The Spell of Freedom and Ash, The Kingdom of blah and blah. What?
I only remember that one because I'm currently reading the third in the series.
Some would say the same of crime and thriller books.
Well, exactly.
When darkness descends, and you know.
Do you know what I mean? I feel like at the moment it's so prevalent with these books. Like it's a very particular mouth pattern, and it just feels like I don't remember which book is which because just like insert word here.
Yeah.
Lex, I'm with you on this one. A something of something and something. Like honestly, now if I see a book that is a something, something, and something, I'm like, well, I'm not going to read it because you've clearly got no imagination.
Not going to read it on principle.
Yeah.
Or how do you not stand in front of it in the bookstore and go, oh, A Kingdom of Blood and Wishes. Have I read that? I must have read that. I've definitely read something like that.
Yeah.
It's all this lady's fault. It's Sarah J. Maas's fault. She's just
It's
too
Sarah J. Maas.
popular and excellent. What were we were talking about what we're reading.
Yes, yeah, I'm about to finish Twilight, about to finish A Touch of Darkness on audio because the fourth one just came out and I got Elle onto it. She's like, oh, it's amazing. And I'm like, I just can't remember what's happened. So I now have to listen to them all again.
That's Scarlett St. Clair, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna need you to do a video of like ranking Hades and Persephone.
There's no point because Neon Gods just trumps everything else, quite frankly.
No, but I want to know, well, maybe not a ranking, but maybe like the differences. Like
I think it's like if you read and loved this, here's some other Hades and Persephone, because that's very much
literally
what is that I read Neon Gods and I was like, I need more of this. And what is very good, sorry, this is probably for that video, about the Touch of Darkness series is that all them. It's 4 books of just them. She did God's work and brought out Hades' point of view. So now there's 8 books and it's just them. So that's where you should go next, if anyone cares.
God's work bringing out Hades.
Like here to go to that video.
Doing God's work.
Jenny, did you say which ones you read immediately?
Yeah, I read Funny Story.
That's right. I'm sorry.
Again, similarly to Char, I was partway through multiple books. So I was reading Jade Wars, which is a very heavy fantasy. Funny Story, very romancy. And a Jacqueline Wilson as well. So again, when I say I read everything, like at the same time I was reading a middle grade, I was reading a fluffy romance, I was reading a very heavy fantasy, and I was reading a very dark thriller, and I was happy with all of them. I believe they've all been 5 stars.
Does anybody have any final questions for the person that they either recommended to or got their recommendation from, or any final thoughts about this experience?
Slightly different one. Alexis and Char, are either of you going to read The Butterfly Garden?
Is that because you're about to spoil it for me?
No, but just like because Lex loved it, I loved it. Has that persuaded either of you to pick up a very dark, twisted thriller?
I'm intrigued.
If someone sends me the book, I'll read it. Your copy of the book, I'll read it. I have it in my possession, I'll probably read it.
Because I'm tempted now to pick up Neon Gods.
Oh my god, please do. Honestly, please do. Literally texted me. She's read it while she's in Japan. She literally texted me like, this is the best thing I've ever read. Thank you for recommending it. I'm like,
No.
thank you. 5 out of 5 experience. Would do it again.
So I think the main takeaway is next time we do this, give Char a short book and give Char
Sorry for that. Like,
deadline.
I don't dislike a long book. I just need someone to keep on top of me about reading it.
Thank you everybody for watching this video. We hope you enjoyed it, and let us know in the comments if you have read any of these books. Let us know if you read outside of your genre comfort zone, and what that's like for you. We'd love to hear it. And I think we're going to wrap it up there. You can sign up for our newsletter with the link at the bottom of the video description, and you can find us on Instagram and TikTok. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.